Let's talk about the draft, though. Matt Miller joins us now at NFL Draft Scout, ESPN NFL Draft Analyst and Insider. And, Matt, appreciate you hopping on, man. Always good to hear from you. Let's start with that. What's your perception of what the Titans just did with Ran Carthon today?
Surprised, I think would be the biggest thing. Somebody who, when they brought him in 2 years ago, was highly regarded coming out of that San Francisco front office. He's a former player. He's going to work so well with yet head coach at the time, Mike Vrabel, who's the hottest guy in the league right now. So, it seems like, hey, they've got this figured out. They've got a really good duo. Even if they weren't hired together, there'd probably be some mutual respect given, the fact that they were both former players. Now we see where we are 2 years later. So I'm surprised, but I'm also not surprised. Everything I've heard about this organization over the last year is that they just can't get out of their own way. And by they, I mean the people in the fancy offices can't get it out of their own way. And so, you can't out-draft or out-coach bad management. And that's where the Titans are at right now.
Yeah, and I saw some of your tweets, and we're in lockstep on this part of it. If you're going to have a vision, stick with it, right? Like, have some stick to it.
Yeah,
this.
You can't come in and be like, yeah, let's sign all these free agents. Let's make these trades. Let's go get L'Jarius Sneed. Let's get Calvin Ridley. Oh, but by the way, if you lose, you're fired. Like, you can't do that. And I'm not going to be, Ran Carthon's apologist on radio today, but What did you want the guy to do? Like, he came into a terrible situation with the salary cap there was no long-term vision there. His drafts have not been great, but they haven't been terrible. And it's only been 2 years, so, like, it hasn't been long enough that you could even say, like, oh, man, well, he really screwed us with this pick. Like, no, can't really say that,
Well, so what I've been told is that Mike Vrabel actually had control of that first draft that Ran was there. So that this is Chad Brinker will be the fourth different person in 4 years to have control of the 53. I mean, stability equals success, right? And that's not stable.
Right. And so here's the funny thing, like for what I do covering the draft, covering the NFL as a whole, you see this happen. And what's crazy is, I would have said the Washington Commanders were the most, mismanaged, toxic franchise, if not business, in the entire country until ownership changed. They're in the playoffs now. They've got probably the rookie of the year in Jaden Daniels. So, this can change very quickly. And I'm not saying the ownership needs to go here, but ownership does need to change. And I think, you can look at Carolina as a situation that 3 months ago it was, oh, man, this looks bad. But you know what? They were patient. It looks like they've hired the right guy, Dave Canales. It looks like they have the right young quarterback in Bryce Young, who has had some bumps, but he's closed very, very strong this year. You can turn this around in an off season if you make the right moves.
Yeah, and I just go back to stability. So now, like, you go through this thing where, well, you fire the GM, John Robinson's gone. I get it, the A.J. Brown move, all that stuff. Then you fire the head coach, Vrabel, with a new GM. So then now you have fired the new GM, and now you've got a head coach. And so, like, if Callie doesn't do well next year, then he gets fired. And it's a complete cycle where you don't have any kind of congruency.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you don't have a quarterback, you're just going to stick in that cycle.
The thing. And you mentioned Washington. Houston's the other one, Matt. I mean, they go from 3-13-1 to divisional champs and win a playoff game in the next season. So quarterback, yes, very important, and they don't have that.
No, I think it was Antonio Pierce who just got fired, even said it's hard to win without the right quarterback.
That's right.
And that's so true. It really is. And I'm going to take a victory lap. You'll remember, I did not like Will Levis coming out.
No, you told us.
On him.
We fought you on that one.
Yep.
But yeah, you were right.
There were people where I worked that were fighting on it. I would go on radio and there'd be people who were just killing me, saying, well, what? Like, how can you not see it? And I was like, listen, I just don't see it. I didn't get it. And, so here we are again, 2 years later, same conversation of, all right, got to go find the guy. And I'll tell you, this is not the year to do it. This is not the year where I want to be in that spot.
This is partly why we called you, and we'll get there. Matt Miller at NFL Draft Scout, ESPN NFL Draft Analyst and Insider. Babs?
Yeah, well, obviously, Levis duped all of us, including Callie, I think, honestly. But so now, all right, what do the Titans do moving forward? They've realized that Levis is not the guy, and now they have the first pick in the draft. And here you are telling us that it's not a great year to go get a quarterback. Do you have first-round grades on any of these quarterbacks?
No. I don't. Not a true first-round grade. Like there's a difference there. Like are they my top 32 players? Yes, they are. But, if we were to say, so for me to say a player is a first-rounder, it means they would be a first-round pick in like any of the last 3 or 4 drafts. I would not say that about Cam Ward. I would not say that about Shedeur Sanders, whoever else you want to put in there, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, however long you want to go on that list. I wouldn't say that any of them are a true first-round player. I wouldn't say they're a blue-chip prospect. We had 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 last year. I'd take every one of those guys over this year's quarterback class, just from what they had in terms of experience, talent, upside, all those things. And I like things about Cam Ward. I like things about Shedeur Sanders, but I got a lot of question marks about him too. And we've got time. We've got 4 months. Hopefully we see Shedeur says he's going to the Shrine Game. I'll be there. Would love to. I've seen him play in person once. Would love to see, spend more time with him. Cam Ward, I hope he goes to the Senior Bowl. It'd be a great opportunity for him. My opinion could be changed, but having watched them quarterback for 2 to 3 years, my initial, hey, season's over, what do you think of these guys? I don't think either of them is a guy you sell the franchise for.
See, I like Cam Ward. But I got to see him.
But do you like him at number 1 overall?
Well, no, but I don't like any quarterback at number 1 overall, right?
To Matt's point.
Yeah. So, but
I like him too.
Yes, I do like, and I got to see him in person this Syracuse-Miami game, which was, partly a disaster from Miami, but got to watch him on the sidelines since I worked that game, got to watch him specifically and how he handled, adversity and all of that. So I feel like I probably have like a different view of him as a quarterback and got to talk to him and all that. But when you look at a Cam Ward, like what's he missing from a first pick grade, Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is he loves to slow play in the pocket, and it leads to he takes a lot of sacks. He didn't throw a lot of interceptions, but he threw a lot of interceptable passes that in the NFL they would be picked off. They're not in college. They will be in the pros. So he's really got to speed that process up. Now, in terms of arm strength, the dude's got a cannon. He's got a great arm. He's kind of got that shortstop throwing motion, so he can launch it on the go. He can find different throwing angles to get those windows. That's all really impressive. If you watch his highlights, you're going to think I'm crazy for saying that I don't just see it. But he's going to have to really speed up the process. He's not ever been in an offense where he's been a, on time, get through my progressions type guy. So that's, and I was going to say for Shedeur Sanders, they both love to hang out in the pocket, kind of drift around, and then make throws. I was the world's biggest Caleb Williams cheerleader, but that was his issue was, man, this dude's got to get through his progressions. That won't work in the NFL. Guess what hasn't worked in the NFL? Him trying to stand in the pocket and wait to get open. You've got to be quicker getting through those progressions and reads. So for both these young guys, they have talent. Like if I'm back on here in a year, we'll talk about, hey, maybe they way outplayed expectations and maybe they got in the right situation. But here's what I will say about Cam Ward. Here's what I love about Cam Ward. Everywhere he's been, Incarnate Ward, Washington State, Miami, he's made those places better everywhere he's been. Everyone you talk to loves the person. And I haven't had a chance to meet him yet. We'll get there. Everyone I talk to raves about the person. It's just a matter of like his stuff is, we just got to speed it up. That you might be able to do that, and if so, you've got an experienced quarterback who's had some adversity. He's had to overcome stuff. He's going to have the chip on his shoulder from not being recruited out of high school.
No doubt.
There's a lot of intangibles to like there. It's just he's just got to learn to play, I think, at a faster clip.
Matt, is there another quarterback, maybe like a talent in the later rounds at quarterback that could fly under the radar? Is there somebody you like that maybe we're not talking about at the top of the board?
I don't think so. And I'm talking to someone about this today. Sorry, I'm just great news for everyone today. I think that the middle class of quarterback is dead in the draft. You either go in the first round or you kind of go in the later rounds and you're an afterthought. The teams in the playoffs, 14 teams in the playoffs, 12 of those quarterbacks were drafted in the first round. Yeah. Jalen Hurts was the second-round pick. Russell Wilson was the third because he's 5'10". Otherwise, he was a first-round pick. So there's just you either have it and you probably get overdrafted a little bit, or you don't have it and you slip through the cracks. The history of round 2 quarterbacks. I mean, y'all are doing it right now. Malik Willis, Will Levis, it just doesn't really exist. I loved Hendon Hooker. He's sitting behind Jared Goff in Detroit. No one's lining up to trade for that guy. So it's just a matter of, like, you either go early or you're really just seen as a backup, I think.
Matt, how do you see Travis Hunter in the NFL? Mainly wide receiver, mainly cornerback? Certainly going to try to play both on some level, I would imagine.
I'm going to do whatever the hell he wants, honestly. Like, it's just, I think it's that simple. Like, what do you want to do? You know, I think from a coaching, like how coaches are going to view him is, he could start at corner, play a package at wide receiver. Mm-hmm. That's probably how you get the most out of him. If I'm Travis Hunter, I look at wide receivers making $20 million a year, and I look at corners making 12. I'm like, man, I'm going to play wide receiver because take the money while you can. I think his body type is more in line with wide receivers in the NFL than it is corners. I would worry about him having to tackle A.J. Browns and guys like that. And I know those don't exist on every team, but they're becoming a lot more common. Seeing Travis on field level, he's not the biggest guy. I mean, he's incredibly twitchy. He's 6 foot 180. You know, he's not this, you know, rocked up athlete. He's a lean dude. We saw it in 2023. You know, he took some hits in 2023 and missed some time. So I think his for career longevity, he would be a better wide receiver. But if you're a bad team drafting him and you're trying to figure out how do we get the most out of him, you probably start him at corner and let him be your number 3 receiver.
So we can't let you go without asking about Shedeur. Although I'm pretty sure that Prime, since he tweeted the eyeball emoji and the wow after the Ran Carthon firing, probably wouldn't love for his son to go to a dysfunctional franchise like the Titans right now. But we have to ask you about him because you don't have a top pick grade on him either.
No, I don't. And I like him. I saw him against Kansas, and I walked away from that shocked by his toughness. He took some really hard, down, like close to dirty hits in that game, and it never rattled him. He was incredibly poised. He's surgical with his accuracy. He can throw with some velocity. The thing is, you know, he loves more than anyone to just pitch a tent in the pocket and wait for something to happen. You know, he's going to wait 5-6 seconds for one of his guys to break open. You're not going to get away with that in the NFL. You know, the other side of it is he doesn't have a very big arm. He's 6 foot 1, 200 pounds. He's not big at all. You know, he's a lean, scrappy guy who is not. He didn't get his dad's speed. You know, he's not that type of quarterback. So you start to look at the physical traits. They're not great. They're really not. Now he's tough as hell and he has great accuracy. He needs to be. I almost think he needs to be like a play action offense where you can cut some of his reads down early. You know, like Cleveland's offense would be great for him. What they want to do in Cleveland, what some of the stuff they haven't been able to do with Deshaun Watson. Like if you got him in a play action offense, I think that's the best thing in the world for him. If you want to spread it out and just put him back in the gun and ask him to break apart a defense with his eyes, I don't know that that's who he is. So there's positives, there's minuses, and a lot of it's going to be about his growth. He's only been coached by his dad. So this is going to be the first time that we're going to see, you know, what his feeling is now that he's got different coaching.
I want to ask you were talking about Travis Hunter and the money and wide receiver and DB and the difference there. It made me think of Abdul Carter at Penn State, who basically went to his DC, you know, his new DC this year and was like, listen, I want to rush the passer. Think Micah Parsons, right? Because he's like, hey, that's where the money is. And he's been super successful this year. A lot of Titans fans are talking about him and want him. I worked that SMU college football playoff game and obviously had a phenomenal game, but there were a couple plays where, you know, I felt that maybe he's not worth a top 5 pick kind of plays, if that makes sense. So I want your take as an expert on what you thought and think about Abdul Carter and his role at the next level.
Well, he's my number 1 overall player, so I'm a huge fan.
Okay, well, there you go.
There you go.
You know, to your point, like, Penn State against SMU, that game wasn't close. You know, like there's going to be times where he knows when to throttle down. He had 20 tackles for a loss this year, 10 sacks, 50 hurries just in the regular season. And all those were top 5 nationally, what he did production-wise. And it was his first year as a pass rusher, to your point. Yeah. And he went from being a stack linebacker to a full-time pass rusher. So I think he's still, like, figuring it out. That it's very easy, and I know I hate the helmet scout. It's very easy to look at him and say, Micah Parsons. 6'3", 255. He's incredibly fast off the edge. If you're going to keep Harold Landry, I know there's some salary cap stuff there if you move on from him. But if you have those two coming off the edge, and we'll see what this defense is going to look like next year, you have those two guys coming off the edge, that's terrifying. Still need a quarterback, though. You still need someone back there throwing the ball. So, unless you're a big believer in Justin Fields or someone like that, I love Abdul Carter, but he's not going to play quarterback, and that's still the by far the biggest need here.
Is there a bridge guy? Because you've walked through the quarterbacks, and I asked you, is there like a guy flying under the radar? You're like, no, I don't like the quarterback draft class. But is there a bridge guy out there, like a Danny Dimes or somebody like that could take the Titans this year and kind of maximize what they have, at least from that perspective, and then draft one next year?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to go about it. You could look at, do you want like a reclamation project like Trey Lance? I don't think he really fits Callahan's offense at all. Daniel Jones is definitely an option. I don't think Justin Fields is a scheme fit either. I wanted it to be Carson Wentz, but he looked awful against Denver, which I don't know how much of like a game plan Kansas City really was putting together for that game.
But didn't look like much of one, did it?
Yeah, I don't know that they're really scheming a whole lot. Again, I'm not trying to just rain on everyone's parade in Nashville today. It's not a great year for free agency. So it's like, hey, you have $61 million in cap space. Like, cool. There's like 4 good free agents this year. So this is why all those quarterbacks went early last year. It's why teams spent their money last year. They knew what was coming. They knew, like, hey, this is the year to spend. Next year might not be. So, Sam Darnold's not going to be out there, it seems like. So Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, he's done okay for Jacksonville down the stretch, but there's not any names where you're like, yeah, that dude could hold it down for us for a year. Mason Rudolph might, he knows the offense at least. If you're going to go bridge and, kind of try to suck for 2026, that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Matt, they've got this big building, with a bunch of cranes that's going up next to the current one that boy, they better get it going before then.
They need to be good by then.
The stadium's supposed to be done?
2027.
2027.
Arch Manning, baby. Hold out for Arch.
Oh, there we go.
2 more years.
Yeah.
Matt, thanks for the time, brother. We'll hit you up throughout the process. Really appreciate you visiting.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
there
Matt.
he is, Matt Miller.